In today's video, we're going to be talking about 10 different pre- and post-apocalyptic dystopian films which appear to be predicting the future. If you were to condense various elements of all of these films into one, you would get an accurate representation of what the future is going to look like. So let's get to it. The first movie is Toys. Yes, I said it, Toys. This is a somewhat facetious sci-fi movie that came out in the year 1992, and it's often forgot about, but it was incredibly prophetic, considering that at the time it came out, the closest thing to virtual reality was Virtual Boy on Game Boy, and we all know how that turned out. The movie depicted Robin Williams as this Willy Wonka-like toy connoisseur and inventor. He ends up creating this fun-loving virtual reality / robot interface that is, of course, hijacked by the military-industrial complex. The simple fact that this movie came out before drones were even a thing is very impressive. And we are certainly on course to see virtual reality being employed for drone operators in the not-so-distant future. In fact, virtual reality simulators are already commonplace for most militaries around the world. As robotics and autonomous technology evolves, soldiers are increasingly going to be trading in their battle dress uniforms for virtual reality headsets. The next movie is The Running Man. The plot in this movie is that it's the year 2025 and the global economy is in shambles. The USA, of course, has become a totalitarian dystopia. Judging by the weather outside, this prediction may not be too far off. In this film, as the economy is collapsing, the elitist state-controlled media entertains the masses with the modern-day equivalent of bread and circuses. This, of course, in the form of violent reality game shows. Go! This serves a dual purpose. For one, it placates people's discontent for the oppressive totalitarian regime and the dire socioeconomic living conditions. It also acts as a cathartic release, redirecting their bloodlust that they have for the state towards these game show participants that are trying to survive and fight for their freedom.
We give them what they want!
This movie predicts everything from $6 cokes, deepfakes, and is kind of a blend between the show The Amazing Race, Manhunter, and any Mr. Beast challenge. Except if you lose the challenge, you of course die. While something like this may not meet ethics approval from a contemporary standpoint, I do foresee something like this being recreated in the virtual realm of things in the not-so-distant future. The next movie is the show Her, with Joaquin Phoenix. Finally, I said his name right. This shows a society in which socially isolated people fall in love with their artificially intelligent virtual assistants. It depicts a future in which the alienated masses, lonely, introverted, and largely depressed, turn towards technology for true emotional support.
I've never loved anyone the way I love you.
In the movie, people begin to forego their real human connections for their phones. Couldn't see that one coming. Based on the current trajectory of swipe culture dating, as well as people getting married later and later if getting married at all, in addition to the skyrocketing divorce rates, I would not be surprised that if properly embedded within the metaverse, that people will likely seek to form meaningful and trustworthy relationships with these AIs over real people. You could pretty much set your watch to that one. On the topic of the metaverse, the next movie should go without saying, Ready Player One. This movie is based off a 2011 book of the same name, and it depicts what the world is going to be like in the year 2045, and I would say it's pretty much right on course. And the way things are going, I'm guessing we're going to get there a lot sooner than that. In the dystopian world of Ready Player One, humanity is gripped by an energy crisis, fueled by global warming. This is causing widespread social problems and economic stagnation. People are trying to escape this bleak reality by spending the majority of their time in virtual reality. That one pretty much writes itself, and there isn't much more to say about it. The next movie is called New Order. This depicts the not-so-alternate universe in Mexico in which the poor have had enough of the ruling elite. This leads to an attempted overthrow of the government and the elites as a whole, which entails a breakdown of rule of law, riots, and subsequently martial law. The whole movie is an unrelentingly brutal depiction of what would happen if the 99.999% decided they had enough with the ruling elite. The parallel here is that throughout the year 2020, the wealthiest became insurmountably wealthy, while the poor and the middle class had their incomes and purchasing power slashed. The movie basically depicts the 99% movement 2.0, but with a lot more unforgiving violence. The next movie is Songbird. This is a controversial movie because it came out at the height of the pandemic. It predicts a not so distant future in the year 2023 where endless waves of different variants of the virus that's currently plaguing humanity has led to a world on permanent lockdown in which health authoritarianism reigns supreme. Considering the movie came out in late 2020, it has proven eerily prescient, predicting everything from vax passports, various tracking apps and men in suits who will come and get you if you don't comply, and largely restricting societal access to the immune. It's no wonder it was so widely criticized upon its release by the woke mob over at Rotten Tomatoes for being insensitive and fueling conspiracy theories. The next movie is Children of Men. The plot of this movie is that in the year 2008, a pandemic strikes that over the course of the next couple decades makes every man on Earth sterile, and thus humanity cannot procreate and is on the brink of extinction. This leads to the complete breakdown of rule of law in most of the countries in the world. One of the countries that is able to hold on by becoming a heavily rigid police state is the United Kingdom. And in spite of the tyranny, people from around the world are still seeking asylum in the UK. This movie has uncanny parallels to the current immigration crisis, and also to the fact that infertility is increasing in men. In fact, it's been found that sperm counts among men in North America, Europe, Australia, and New Zealand declined more than 60% from 1973 to 2011, according to a meta-analysis conducted on the research. A link to that research will be in the description below. What this means is that at the current rate, half the men in these countries won't have any sperm by 2045. But I'm pretty sure by that time our nefarious overlords will have perfected genetic engineering, cloning, and maybe even artificial wombs in order to propagate the species. What could possibly go wrong? The next movie actually isn't a movie, but it was a TV series based on a comic book. This one's called Y: The Last Man. It depicts the outbreak of a virus that simultaneously kills any mammal on Earth with a Y chromosome. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's basically all the cisgendered males. As all the men die off, the world then collapses into chaos. And with the threat of human extinction looming overhead, the women attempt to rebuild a world without men. But of course, one man somehow happens to survive. The show raises a lot of issues that preoccupy the gender role debate in a society in which cloning humans becomes possible. One possible thing that this movie might predict is that in the future, when cloning and bioengineering become possible, that males may in fact become obsolete, and humanity may drift toward a more female-dominant society. What's more is every relationship depicted in the movie appears to be in some state of turmoil. For example, the protagonist within the movie is depicted as this failed artist, beta male, who faces rejection from his more dominant alpha female counterpart. This sets the stage for a movie that's a radical feminist dream come true. The next movie is Demolition Man. This is an action-packed rendition of Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, which sees a world divided into two main groups: an underclass of freedom-loving, sewer-dwelling libertarians, and the majority, who are an infantile, effeminate lot of docile and hyper-compliant nanny-state-worshipping yes-men and women. This movie predicts everything from iPads, OnlyFans, virtual reality sex, self-driving cars, and a society that has foregone almost every individual right for the safety brought with a seemingly utopian but actual totalitarian government.
Smoking is not good for you, and has been deemed that anything not good for you is bad, hence illegal. Alcohol, caffeine, contact sports, meat.
Are you shitting me?
Sounds quite familiar. The next movie is Elysium. In this movie, the Earth has been bled dry of natural resources. The environment has been destroyed, the planet is overpopulated, and the rich continue to leech what remains of those resources to build an exclusive off-world colony called Elysium, while all the while exploiting the pesky Earthlings and their inhabitants for labor and resources. After all, somebody's gotta build the killer robots, right? The parallels here are glaringly obvious references to the immigration crises around the world, as refugees and migrants flee destitute, war-torn countries for the promise of security and prosperity in the wealthier nations, aka Elysium. It also depicts a two-tiered healthcare system, where the rich perpetually live forever on Elysium, are protected by robot police, and bodily modifications with things like exoskeletons are all the rage amongst the underclass. These are all things that we're sure to see in the future. The next and last movie that predicts the future probably to a T is the movie Dread. This takes place in a crime-infested post-World War III dystopian hellscape, in which the only habitable world is this sprawling megalopolis called Mega City 1. This is comprised of thousands of mega skyscrapers, each housing hundreds of thousands of dejected inhabitants, and are usually overrun by some criminal element, like gangs. The only thing that's sustaining humanity in this sprawling city of 800 million is technology. Police, of course, are limited in supply, and as such are afforded the rights of judge, jury, and executioner.
I am the law.
It depicts a future in which the majority of the Earth is an irradiated wasteland and surviving off the grid indefinitely is virtually impossible. So the 800 million survivors opt for the overcrowded, crime-infested police state hellscape instead. Let me know in the comment section below what movies you think predict the future. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.
The best way to support this channel is to support yourself by gearing up at CanadianPreparedness.com, where you'll find high-quality survival gear at the best prices, no junk, and no gimmicks. Use discount code PREPPINGGEAR for 10% off. Don't forget, the strong survive, but the prepared thrive. Stay safe.